It's been just under 2 years since my last official club gig, which means it's probably been the exact same amount of time since these have last been turned on. You can see how dusty they are. They definitely need a bit of a wipe before we turn them on. I don't even know if they still work. There's no reason why they shouldn't. But in this video today, I'm going to be mixing some tunes for you whilst explaining why I am not totally against the idea of clubbing, especially when it comes to your self-improvement journey. So this video is going to be the case for clubbing, why you can go clubbing, and the reason as to why you should go clubbing. Now, hopefully this works. I don't know how this is going to work audio-wise. Hopefully it'll record audio into my microphone. Camera should be working. This should turn on. Let's see if it works. It works. That is good news. This video shouldn't go for longer than 20, not even 20, shouldn't go for longer than 15 minutes maximum. 20 is like reaching it, which means I'm probably only going to get through like 3-4 songs max. So who knows what we've got here last time I turned this on. Let's have a quick squiz. It's winter right now for me, so I'm feeling winter vibes is like melodic. So let's see if I still remember how I set this up. 120 BPM is what we're going to do. Why can't I hear anything? It's probably because my headphones aren't plugged in. So I'm going to be recording this. So I should probably click record. Yeah, no. Laggy as. So maybe, I don't know how this is going to work. I'm going to stop recording and come back and figure it out. Okay, I think we're good to go. I've put just my notes on the screen here so I don't go completely off topic. But the case for clubbing. I'm not completely against clubbing. The reason being is very simply, now the rule here, if you've never learned about DJing, is you're not allowed to use the sync button. Please do not use the sync button. Now, I'll give you a brief backstory of my DJing career. I started DJing in my bedroom when I was 14, so that's like 11 or 12 years ago. And then I had my first club gig in 2020, the week before the first ever lockdown in Melbourne. I found love with DJing from people like Avicii, David Guetta, and then all the Melbourne big kings such as Will Sparks, Joe Fletcher, Callis. I'm not going to give too much into that because that's not what this video is about and that's not what you're here for. But I was very fortunate to grow up in Melbourne where DJing is a very, very big thing. Every second person, at least, was a DJ and probably still is a DJ. And we have a very, very strong clubbing scene, or at least we did. I'm not sure what it is now because I haven't been in it. But the reasons why people say you should not go clubbing, the very obvious ones, is because obviously you've heard the quote, proximity is power. You're hanging around with people who are doing degenerate things, which means you're more likely to do degenerate things such as sleep around, take drugs, do things like nangs, which ruin your brain, which I did a little bit of. Just lots of fucked stuff that you just shouldn't be doing. And it's very obvious as to why you should not go, as to why you shouldn't go clubbing. But here's the reason why you should go clubbing. Because let's say you are trying to stop drinking, or you're trying to stop taking drugs, or you don't want to take drugs, or you're trying to stop vaping, or you're trying to stop doing all these degenerate things that we do tend to do when we are at clubs, even sleep around. It's very easy to not do those things when you're just in the comfort of your room, being a little hermit and doing other things like you're going to the gym, all that stuff. It's easy to not do those things. Now, I have learned in recent times that there's this thing called exposure therapy. I'm going to actually rewind 2 more minutes. I was going to say this first. Sorry, I'm concentrating on two things at once. But you might have heard of this experiment. It's called the marshmallow test or the marshmallow experiment, where there were these kids and they were placed in a room. They were sitting at a desk just like I am right now. And they had a marshmallow that was placed right in front of them. And The goal for them was not to touch the marshmallow until the assessor returned, which they didn't know when the assessor would return. They didn't know whether it was going to be 1 minute, 5 minutes, half an hour, whatever. And they weren't allowed to touch the marshmallow. If they didn't touch the marshmallow, they would get a second marshmallow. If they ate the marshmallow, they wouldn't get a second marshmallow. So the thing there is, as a result of this study, the assessors learned, or basically what happened is, the kids who were able to not touch the marshmallow ended up getting better results in life, going further in life, because in this test, when they were 6, 7, 8 years old, they demonstrated something called self-control, which is having the marshmallow, having the alcohol, having the drugs, having the vape right in front of you, and saying no. Now that is a much more better skill than staying home in your room all the time. Because I can tell you 100%, because I live this, the way that I learned self-control to not touch drugs, to say no to vaping eventually, and to gain control over my drinking was by being surrounded by it all the time, 5 nights a week until 6 a.m. That is what my clubbing schedule was like when I was out networking, DJing, all of this stuff. That is how you learn self-control. And it goes back to what I said, it's exposure therapy. You don't learn self-control when you're not exposed to the things that tempt you. If you're not tempted by anything, if you're just sitting in your room, you're locked in a concrete jail cell, you're not learning self-control. You're not overcoming temptation. You're just avoiding temptation. And in the world where the devil exists, temptation will always exist. So the goal is not to be this hermit who, as soon as a marshmallow is placed in front of you, you're going to touch it. Because you can't go through the entire life avoiding all of your triggers and all the things that you would like to do, but you shouldn't do, because they're going to come into your life eventually. You're going to be at a wedding one day and people are going to be drinking, or someone's going to have Coke or whatever. You're going to have to learn how to be in that vicinity and say no anyways. The perfect place to learn that is at clubs every single weekend, especially if you are a DJ. Go and DJ. You know how much free stuff you get offered when you DJ? Drinks, drugs, everything you could imagine. Free most of the time. Very tempting. When it comes to exposure therapy, or when it comes to overcoming anything or getting better at anything, the best way to get better at anything is, unfortunately, exposing yourself to it. It's exposure therapy. So let's say we have a fear of rejection. This has nothing to do with clubbing, but let's say you have a fear of rejection. The thing that is going to overcome your fear of rejection isn't reading a book about rejection and overcoming fear of rejection. It's yes, gaining the knowledge, but the thing that's going to help you overcome it is actually going out and getting rejected. And then what happens is your brain learns, oh, I got rejected and I didn't die. Now I no longer have to be as scared of it. And you do that enough and enough and enough and enough, you're no longer afraid of it. That's why I post content now on Instagram, and I'm making this video on YouTube. This obviously is good for me trying to grow a personal brand, but it's also me overcoming the fear of rejection and also the fear of perfectionism. Recording something, putting it out there, there's a huge chance that someone's just not going to like this and going to leave a nasty comment one day. I've had that before on some reels and some YouTube videos, and that's rejection in real time. And the way that, for me and for you, that you become no longer affected by the things you're afraid of, such as rejection, is by being exposed to it and learning how little of a deal it is. So let's go back to clubbing. What is the reason why we tend to drink or do drugs or do all these things? It's probably because we feel a bit awkward whilst we're there, so we want to loosen up or we want to fit in a bit, so we feel like we don't fit in. Now, the only way to overcome that fear of not filling in, of not being enough, of feeling awkward, is to feel awkward because you're not doing those things, say no to those things, and feel awkward anyways, until you learn that this awkwardness is not a problem, and you learn how to develop or discover your just authentic self, who you actually are without those things. And yes, as I said, you can develop that skill by going to the gym and avoiding the club. But if you were like me and you genuinely enjoyed music and you enjoyed DJing, for example, which is a passion of mine, and it always was a passion of mine, something I haven't done in like 2 years, as you can see by these dusty decks, I did not let self-improvement stop me from going out and having great experiences sober. Now, again, as I said, there's the case saying, well, you're in low frequency environments with low frequency people, but you can find good people out clubbing. But this isn't the point of this video. It's not about who you're surrounded by. It's about you putting yourself in a situation where you can fail and overcoming that. Because some of us are so afraid of failure, we won't even give ourselves a chance to, oh shit, I haven't been paying attention to my mixing. Okay. Some of us have been, we're so afraid of failure that like we don't trust ourselves, and that's okay. You don't have to trust yourself yet, because you likely do not have proof that you can do it. Yeah, but the only way to develop the proof that you can have self-control, as I said, I feel like I'm repeating myself, is by going into a place where you're tempted, and then overcoming that temptation. It's the only way. So exposure therapy is the way. Is no other way. If you want to improve at something, you have to just go and do it. You can't just read about it. You can't just read books. You can't just listen to podcasts. You have to take action at a certain point. And I used to be a perfectionist. I used to be someone who did not take action. I used to be someone, this is going to be the last song, by the way. We've got through 2 songs. I don't know how long this has gone for. 14 minutes, I think this has gone for so far. So, very good of me. I'm proud of myself for being able to somewhat multitask and concentrate. I'm going to take these off because I don't need to listen to this anymore. You can hear it. But yeah, the whole point of this video is you need to take action. You don't need more knowledge. The thing that held me back for so long is I was a perfectionist. And what perfectionists do is we get stuck in what I like to call the knowledge acquisition and the planning phase, where planning your next thing to do and reading all these books and listening to all these podcasts, that feels very, very productive. And it is to a certain point, but it doesn't get you the result. It just makes you feel smarter. The thing that gets you result is actually taking the action. Now, I'm reminded of a quote that I heard by Chris Williamson says, the thing you're looking for, or the change you're looking for, is in the thing you're avoiding. Now, the thing you're likely avoiding is putting yourself in the uncomfortable situation where you could be faced with temptation and fail. That is scary, especially if you have been addicted to something and you're putting yourself in a position where you could re-enter addiction again. That's not good. But one of my biggest addictions, I've had 2 really big addictions, vaping and porn. Now, obviously, to overcome porn, I put in porn blockers and all these things. But we live in a hyper-sexualized world. And I would never be able to expect myself to avoid temptation everywhere I go and to just like block my eyes and never see a lustful girl again. I had to learn how to overcome my lust in a world full of lust. The way you do that is by living in the world, by experiencing things, so that now if I was to turn my porn blocker off, I believe it is still on because I've just never switched it off, I would probably be getting ads on Google for, MILFs in your local area. Even on my stories in Instagram, I see the profiles people story watching. You can see they're like OnlyFans, like bots or whatever it is. And if I didn't do the work of overcoming lust, I would give into that temptation. But the thing is, because I'm exposed to temptation and I say no every single time, that muscle of saying no becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. So the case for clubbing is
Make the muscle stronger and stronger and stronger of saying no by being offered it and saying no, by exposing yourself to it and saying no, by going out clubbing and saying no. It's actually going to do two things. It's going to give you more self-control. It's also going to overcome your fear of rejection, because saying no means that you're different to everyone else there and people are going to judge you. And not everyone will judge you. There'll be people who respect you and say, I wish I could do that. Well done, man. I respect you. I'm not going to offer you it ever again, and I'm going to support you on this journey. I'm lucky I had mates like that. But there's going to be a large majority of people who really judge you for it, especially behind your back, and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel a bit different, and that's okay. That is going to change you in ways you never thought. So go out clubbing simply because it will teach you self-control and it will overcome your fear of rejection. Take care.